So Don Krieg and the Krieg Pirates have launched a full-on attack now on the Baratie. It's fully kicking off. Now they're having all of the cooks having to defend the Baratie, and they're all fighting for their lives. It's very clear that they all really care about this restaurant and defending it. It's sort of all their home, you know. A lot of these cooks were sort of like didn't fit anywhere else in society and didn't fit anywhere else in terms of like being cooks or being chefs basically because they were pirates. So this is the place where they could go where they could, you know, be pirates and also be cooks. You know, Zeph sort of brought them in under the condition that as long as they were able to feed everybody, no matter who they were, if they were crooks, if they were corrupt, if they were hungry, they needed to eat. They all are there under that condition, and Zeph sort of brought them in. So for them, this is all their sort of like, this is their place. Do you know what I mean? So they're all fighting for their lives. They're fighting for this restaurant as if it was all of their treasure, essentially. That's what Zeph called the Baratie as well. You know, this is his treasure, just like Luffy's hat is his treasure. We also got a tiny glimpse into the history of Sanji and Zeph and sort of why they care so much about feeding people. It was only a tiny little glimpse. Maybe it will get expanded more at some point, but it was pretty clear that Zeph and Sanji at some point were starving together. We saw like Sanji as a kid, basically crying his eyes out, and Zeph proclaiming that if he could do one thing before he dies, his one wish is to make a restaurant at the sea. So I'm guessing, like, essentially nobody has to suffer anymore, like starving wise, nobody has to go through that situation anymore. It's pretty clear that Zeph and Sanji have a very tragic history together. And I believe, I've only just noticed this really, but Sanji obviously fights with his kicks, and Zeph is known as Redfoot Zeph. You know, he's a pirate that used only like his legs to fight, essentially, like the most powerful kicks. So I believe that Sanji was probably Zeph was probably Sanji's mentor, is what it looks like. And they must have ended up in some situation where, again, they were both lost at sea. Maybe they were both starving. And yeah, maybe that's got something to do with how Zeph lost his leg. I'm not too sure. But there's definitely a tragic past there for sure. And there is a very good reason why they have this restaurant and why they both share the philosophy that they do about feeding people no matter what they're, you know, who they are. There was something that Don Krieg said in this episode which I found quite interesting as well, and that's the fact that in the Grand Line, Luffy would be like a regular pirate because everybody there basically has devil fruit powers. Like it's very common. Where they are right now in like the East Blue and the rest of the world, devil fruit powers are like an outlier. You know, they're super rare and really really uncommon. But in the Grand Line, they're absolutely everywhere. So when eventually they do get there, I don't think Luffy's going to have as big of an advantage over everybody as he does now, like not even close. Like I said in the last video, it just puts into perspective where they are now is like a fishbowl in like an ocean, essentially, is what it feels like. And there's so much more danger out there. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg for the world of One Piece, essentially. So it's going to be interesting to see when they get to the Grand Line, like what's actually there. Like, is Luffy even remotely special? You know, he wants to be the king of the pirates. Is that going to even be achievable with, you know, when they get to the Grand Line? Is he going to be like, fuck, like sort of like Zoro had with Mihawk in the last episode? Like his perspective is just like completely widened and changed. Anyway, like I said, the Krieg pirates are attacking the Baratie in this episode, and one of Krieg pirates is called Pearl, and it's just this dude with a pearl on his head with like loads of shields and armor, and he claimed to be undefeatable and indestructible. And then Luffy accidentally beat him by dropping like a boat pillar on his head, just absolutely crushed him. But Pearl managed to set the Baratie on fire, and Zeph put the flames out pretty quick. Like if Zeph wanted to fight, I think he could like fuck some people up still. Do you know what I mean? Maybe he's just choosing not to fight because his new philosophy is, you know, he's a cook now. He even said that, like, he's just a chef and he's perfectly fine with that. So he doesn't want to fight unless he absolutely has to, maybe. But he didn't have a problem with kicking the shit out of Luffy. So I don't know. Who knows? But at the end, Gin, the bastard, who I thought didn't betray Sanji and everybody, actually is holding up Zeph at gunpoint now. He sort of knocks him down and he's like, yeah, holding him at gunpoint. So maybe Gin is actually a bad guy. I'm not too sure. I can't quite figure out what this guy's doing, if he's on our side or on Don's side or what is going on. But yeah, anyway, it's kicking off. I hope they manage to defend the Baratie, and I hope we get a bit more history on why exactly, you know, Sanji and Zeph specifically care so much about this place and why it is so, so important to them, because it clearly is. But yeah, that was the episode. On to the next one.